Hi there, Leanne from the Vermilion District Chamber of Commerce. This Town of Vermilion Councillor candidate will be with Incumbent Rob Pulyk. So just a reminder to everybody that all of the candidates have been asked the same questions in the same order without prior knowledge of what the questions would be. All of our questions have been submitted by members of the public. And also just a reminder for everybody to get out and vote on October 18th. So I will now hand it over to Rob to kind of introduce himself and why he decided to seek re-election.
Okay, thanks, Leanne. Hello, all. I'm Councillor candidate Rob Pulyk, running for Town Council. A little bit about myself. My wife, Lorraine, and I moved to Alberta in 1982 from Ontario. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in agriculture, major dairy science. Having worked in the food and confectionery industry in Ottawa and Toronto, a career opportunity came to work for Alberta Agriculture Dairy Division as a professional growologist. My career has spanned the entire province in varying positions and living in different communities, reaching the senior manager level for Northeastern Alberta. That brought me to our family to Vermilion. We raised 6 children in Vermilion, establishing strong community and volunteer roots. Public service has been my passion, so it was a natural transition to extend my skills to municipal government and run for town council in 2010. Retiring 3 years ago, I continue to be involved in the community, working part-time at Reflections Funeral Home. I'm very grateful to the community for giving me the opportunity to be on council for 3 terms. This term, I chaired the committees for broadband, Vermilion River Regional Alliance, and economic development. I participated in negotiations with the County of Vermilion River, the and finance, planning, the Assessment Review Board, and Community Futures. As well, I've successfully advocated with our mayor to the Service Alberta Minister to keep their office fully open in Vermilion, informed Alberta's 2 senators regarding the rural digital divide, and address broadband issues with the Minister of Service Alberta and Infrastructure Canada. Economic Development's Business Incentive Program and the Broadband Project has created and retained jobs. It's provided our businesses along 47th Ave with high-speed internet, and it's created new opportunities for the town of Vermilion. Our community has challenges ahead to address affordable housing, ensuring the provincial government delivers on the promised senior level 4 care, increase provincial fees for municipal RCMP, reduce provincial local government fiscal funding for municipalities, establishing innovative opportunities for our airport, applying the recreational master plan outcome to determine our future recreational footprint requirements, and completing negotiations with the County of Vermilion River. If elected, I will serve with passion, integrity, and drive for the prosperity of the town of Vermilion and to make Vermilion the community of choice to live in. Thank you.
Thank you. So you've gone over quite a list of accomplishments, but I was just wondering if there's one that you thought was like the biggest accomplishment in the past 4 years.
In this past term, I've been spending a lot of time on broadband. The business community along 47th Ave learned that we were exploring that with the Vermilion River Regional Alliance. We did a business case study with the Vermilion River Regional Alliance, and it noted that Vermilion was a key community that would benefit from having high-speed symmetrical services. So with the business community approaching us, we decided as a council to pursue exploring with our consultants, seeing what we can do to have high-speed internet on 47th Ave and along Highway 41 to 16. We did a pilot project at the fair, and then after that pilot project with the technology that we obtained from the United States, we decided to put in a little bit of a small network on 47th Ave and provide that high-speed symmetrical services to the businesses. And honestly, if we weren't able to provide that type of service, there was the potential of losing businesses and jobs because they just had difficulty functioning with the limited broadband services that they currently had.
Okay. Being that expenses and the cost of living have increased, as a future councillor, would you agree taxes are too high in Vermilion? And if so, how would you propose to lower or at the very least hold them the same over the next few years?
To agree that the taxes are high, I'm not sure if we can validate that. If you look at other communities, I would say that we're pretty much on par with communities about our size. Some of the struggles that all municipalities are having right now is with the provincial government cutting back on funds, grant funds that they provide to communities. The rural communities now are having to pay for RCMP, and those fees are going to continue to increase. So that's unexpected money that's coming out from the revenue that we've generated. There are challenges to balance that out, but having said that, there are some tools in the toolbox to keep some of these taxes low, understanding that we have no control over school taxes. So we could have 0% tax as a municipality, but the province can come and say, you know, we collect the money for the province and we collect that through taxes. They could have, that could impact every resident through the money that we need to collect for the school taxes. And also assessment of your homes has an impact to how much you pay for taxes. So it's there are a lot of variables there, but the bottom line is that the only tools that we really do have to control expenses is to, one, reduce the capital reserves that we hold back every year to replace infrastructure, machinery, vehicles. We can expand the capital replacement. Instead of doing it for 5 or 6 years, we could extend it for 10. However, there's implications to that down the road. So for example, if you have a vehicle replacement every 6 years, and then you stretch that to 12 years, you're going to have to make sure that you've got a really good maintenance program to keep those vehicles operational. So that's another tool. The other one is to reduce service levels to things like changing the garbage pickup, reducing the amount of snow removal, reducing services such as the library, the arena, the stadium. To cut back on those services would impact everybody, but it would be a means of trying to reduce taxes. Understanding, people like to think, well, maybe you've got too many people on administration. You know, the town operates with about 30 people. That's not a lot of people. And it only represents, when you take into account council's fees and staffing fees, it only represents about 8 to 9% of the overall expenses that we have as a community. One of the big ticket items is with roads, sidewalks. We could extend that as well. But again, you know, there's only so much you can do. And this council and previous councils have really tried to juggle around trying to keep that tax level low. And the taxes are there to replace money that we need, and understanding the revenue that we have and the expenses. So there are combinations to do it. Some would disagree that our taxes are much higher than other communities. Again, from the information that we've seen, I would say that we're pretty much on par. And, you know, the big effort is economic development. If we can, you know, through economic development, we can attract new businesses, that helps with the tax base as well. So there you go. There's a couple of combinations there, but there are some consequences to that as we go along. But there you go. There's a combination for council to consider. As far as an individual councillor, you can bring forward those ideas, but you have to convince the other 6 around the table and your finance director and your CAO that this is the right direction to go. So we have to look at it as a big picture for the community and what's best for everyone as a whole.
Vermilion is a beautiful town and is flourishing so nicely. This submitter's concern is with the trailer park area. There are many young families that live in the area, but the roads are still gravel and no sidewalks, but yet the taxes are high. For instance, they say theirs are about $1,700 per year. During winter months, there is no street cleaning that happens, and in the summer months, the roadways get wet and muddy from the substance the town uses and the rain. The residents know their taxes will increase if paving does happen, but it might be worth finding out if that is possible. Would you advocate for change in this area? It would be nice to see this area cleaned up a bit where families can teach their kids how to ride a bike or learn to skateboard.
Absolutely. I agree with the comments about the roads and the trailer park. That has been an issue for some time. The mechanisms that we have as a council right now through the MGA, Municipal Government Act, is to advise people that, you know, an area of your street is going to be paved. And the way it's set up now is that if there's paving in front of your house, you pay a percentage of that cost, either through your taxes or cash up front to have that road paved. And the trailer park area was advised, and they appealed it as a group, that they didn't want to pay for the paving of that road. And so consequently, we have a dirt road there, and it does get muddy and lots of potholes, and makes it difficult for town staff to maintain snow removal, etc. I wouldn't, as a councillor for the next council, I really strongly believe that we need to be looking at the offsite levy program and having some changes to that. And I think as a community as a whole, we contribute for all the upgrades in our community over time. So how do we compensate the people who have paid already? And how do we cover that cost so that all of us don't have to pay that money up front for the roads, is something that we need to be researching out before we bring that forward to the community. And we need some feedback from the community on that. So that would eliminate the overall upfront costs to those individuals in the trailer park, but it will spread the cost out to the entire community then to cover the cost of doing all the roads in our community. And I've lived in another community where everybody contributed to the cost on an annual basis for the roads and the sidewalks. So each individual homeowner isn't, impacted by a large sum of money just to do the frontage in front of their place.
Why are we as taxpayers paying for an economic development department that attracts competitors, such as restaurants, that could possibly put our pre-existing businesses out of business? What new businesses do you think would be a positive addition to our town?
Well, for sure, the economic development department does not work on trying to eliminate businesses that we have. I'll give you an example. The business incentive program that we have, which contributes up to $20,000 for new innovative businesses. We do an environmental scan and determine where the holes are in our town. So the basis of it is that we want people to come to our community to do the shopping. So if people are leaving our community to go someplace else to get some products or services that they can't get here, we're looking to attract those businesses. Just like, for example, the airport. We're looking at aviation type businesses to be located in the town at the airport to attract revenue for the airport and bring that economic development into our community. The businesses that are looking at our site selectors come to our community, and they do an overall environmental scan as well to see whether they can make a viability in the community, and they also look at the impact to other businesses as well. And I have to assure all the ratepayers here is economic development, their direction is to bring in new businesses, retain businesses, increase the economic viability of our community, and not to be out there closing businesses down. That is not the direction of economic development. And in the time that I've been in the community and being involved with economic development, certainly the direction is to be moving the town forward and not trying to eliminate existing businesses.
Unless you are a World War II vet, COVID is by far the largest crisis of our lifetime. Such crises require steadfast and strong response to minimize damages. While Vermilion has been very lucky so far to have avoided a COVID catastrophe, the province as a whole has not. While other municipalities have actively responded to the COVID crisis with strong safety measures and messaging, the town of Vermilion, in contrast, has not been a strong promoter of COVID safety information or safety measures. Rather, the number of mental health posts on the town Facebook page are dozens of times more frequent than safety information for the pandemic. COVID is a crisis of community, which needs the leaders to lead the community, but that didn't happen. So looking back, was there anything that you would do to change the COVID response, and anything that you would look at doing in the next year or so if elected?
So from the start of the COVID issue, the town of Vermilion administrative staff have been working closely with Alberta Health Services, and they've been participating in weekly conversations across the province and listening to what other municipalities are doing. The administration took the stand of following the guidelines of Alberta Health and relying on them to get the information out to our community. Now, I know that the administration did work with all the groups that were impacted, especially at the recreational facilities. That was a real key focus at that point in time. And we felt that with the information that was out there through the media, the newspapers, that was sufficing for our community. We didn't want to be taking council certainly wanted to follow Alberta Health's guidelines and didn't want to be taking anything over and above that, because we don't have the legislative mandate through the MGA unless you declared a state of, a municipal emergency. So we took that approach, and there was a point where we felt that we were following the numbers that were coming across Alberta Health, and it was showing that the numbers were going up within the county of Vermilion River, which were included in those numbers. And just so happens the day that we were considering mandating masks when you're in a retail or a grocery store, that was the same day that the province came down and mandated the wearing of masks. So we like to take the approach of working with Alberta Health and not trying to take a lead on that one so much, because really the expertise is with them. I know that larger centers like Edmonton and Calgary, they did take some steps to go ahead of that, but honestly, we don't, to enforce it through our own peace officer, we don't have the ability to enforce that mandate. So that's one reason why we decided to take a slightly different approach and work with Alberta Health and the local health inspectors.
What do you think of the current road cleaning services like snow plowing and street sweeping? What would you do to improve it?
Well, that's interesting, because you did ask a question, mentioned a question about our taxes are too high. And yet, there's a concern, I guess, through your question that perhaps the road cleaning and the snow removal isn't adequate enough. We did take some changes in the last year or two, where we focused on having our own town staff doing more of that sidewalk cleaning and not contracting it out to save some money. And the routes were were evaluated, determined whether or not the routes were, which ones were high priority and low priority. And so there was a slight cutback on some of the snow removal in the subdivisions and the roads off the main off of downtown area. So how do you improve it? Well, we can improve it. It's just a matter of finding the right kind of dollars. So if you put more money into snow removal and road cleaning, then something else is going to have to go. So we could juggle the number of days where you're getting your garbage could be picked up maybe once a month. If so we got to juggle things around. So I think we're really looking for feedback from the community. And as the council, we have offered in council the ability for the public to come in and provide us with public commentary. I would encourage people, if they would like to see things done differently in our community, is to either get in touch with with a councillor or take part in the public commentary and provide us with that feedback.
If you received a $1 million grant, no strings attached, for the use in town in any way, what would you do with it and why?
An open grant. Well, certainly to me, I think with COVID and all the issues related to, the social fabric of our community and mental health, for sure, I would put a good portion of that money into family and community support services. The provincial government is reducing that amount on an annual basis, and so there are fewer and fewer organizations that are tapping into this kind of money that really our community does need. And I would inject a fair amount of money into that. It is important to us. The other one is we do have some infrastructure needs for our community. Just for an example, we only have 2 lots left in the Brennan subdivision for new development, new housing. And the North Brennan requires a lift station, and that's roughly almost $1 million. And we need to develop the North Brennan and get a lift station in there so that we can start developing it by phases to incorporate. And another important area for us as a community is affordable housing. Housing prices are going up, and if we work with the mortgage lending institutions nationally, they have programs in place to help communities out with programs to initiate affordable housing. I would use a portion of that money to kickstart that for the North Brennan.
And lastly, what is the #1 thing you wish to accomplish in the next 4 years?
In the next 4 years, again, I want to see the movement of the broadband. It's coming, it's really important to our community, and I want to see the implementation of the fiber network to every house and every business in our community, and that is going to be a big undertaking, but the wheels are in motion now. I just want to make sure that that all falls into place. The other one is really advocating to our local MLA and our provincial government, specifically Alberta Health and the government of Alberta, to really initiate the implementation of the senior level 4 care at our lodge in our community. We have been talking about this for about 8 years, 2 terms that we have been talking about it. For me, with the provincial government and Alberta Health, the need to not separate our loved ones from each other, to move them to other communities because of the health needs that they require. We know that the lodge can accommodate a senior level 4 care, and we have to ensure that the government is going to live up to their promise to have senior level 4 in our community. They made this promise back in February, March in the new budget. And to date, we're still waiting. And it needs to happen as tomorrow.
Okay, excellent. So that's the end of our submitted questions. If there's anything else you'd like to say as a closing statement, now would be a good time for that.
Well, again, I want to thank the community for having elected me for the past 3 terms. I've thoroughly enjoyed being a councillor and working on a multitude of different projects. I'm very passionate about every committee, every project that comes in front of me. And the desire is not for me as an individual, it's for all of council to work together for the betterment of the town of Vermilion. And I hope to be part of that team. Thank you very much. And please vote October 18th.
That's great. Well, thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much, Leanne.